My boss degrades me at work, so I get 11 employees to quit at the same time. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. Back at the beginning of 21, I worked at a small community health nonprofit with an insane CEO. She would constantly call team meetings to put down and belittle employees in front of the entire staff. Often, she would throw around some variation of, "Do I have to do everything around here?" and call everyone on staff incompetent. When we did do something right, she never gave us credit and always took the credit for herself. She threatened firing everyone constantly and would randomly call us to gossip and make petty remarks about each other, pitting staff against one another. One day, the CEO called a team meeting. In a group text chat between some of the more chill employees, we immediately began sending snake and eye roll emojis. Sure enough, we get on the call and she begins by bringing our attention to how Louise does not dress appropriately for work. Louise, who is also upper management, the COO, looks about ready to smack the CEO. The CEO viciously tears into Louise, commenting on everything from her hairstyle to her lipstick shade to how it's inappropriate for Louise to wear off-the-shoulder blouses that show her collarbone. She then tells everyone that we had all better start dressing more formally, or there would be consequences. The next day, the CEO calls another meeting. We all join and Louise turns on her camera. I immediately had to turn off mine because I didn't want to get caught laughing my butt off. Louise was dressed from head to toe in what looked like something someone would wear to prom. Her hair was immaculately styled into an elaborate updo. Her makeup was professionally done with lash extensions and everything. She was dripping with what I assume were fake diamonds. Tiara, earrings, necklace, bracelets, and rings. And she wore the most ridiculous navy blue satin formal gown, with a faux fur shoulder shrug to cover her collarbone. My best guess is that it was an old bridesmaid dress, but she never did say where she got it. The CEO was immediately fuming. "Why are you dressed like that?" "You told us to dress more formally. This is formal wear. Is something wrong?" "That's not professional for work." "Oh, I'm sorry, I must have been confused. You said we needed to dress formally, but I think what you meant to say was professionally." The CEO was livid, but Louise continued to rock the prom outfit all day, meeting with patients and clients and everything. Later that week, Tina texts our group chat and says that the CEO was requiring her to submit a detailed timesheet with what she was doing and working on down to the minute for her entire day. She was going to BCC us on the email. Sure enough, it pops up in our inboxes a few minutes later. Tina had literally detailed her entire past 24-hour day, down to the minute. 6:45 a.m., awoken by husband's flatulence. 7 a.m., peed and changed menstrual pad. 7:02, began bowel movement. 7:10, completed bowel movement. 7:12, turned on the shower. 7:13, tested water temperature with hand. You get the idea. Apparently, the CEO called her on her cell phone and berated her for sending such a detailed timesheet. Tina reminded her that she had requested her entire day down to the minute and didn't specify she meant her workday only. Finally, my turn. My job was in IT, and most of my work was as a database administrator, but I often helped with other tech problems. One morning, the CEO called me repeatedly at 2 a.m. My phone settings have it so that if I miss 5 calls in a row from the same person, the Do Not Disturb mode is turned off and the phone rings. I see who it is, silence my phone, and refuse to answer. At 6 a.m., she calls again. Again, I refuse to answer. 7 a.m., refuse to answer. 8 a.m., refuse to answer. Finally, at 9 a.m., I call her back. She asks to hop on a video call. "I've been trying to get a hold of you all morning. Where have you been?" "Can I help you with something?" I didn't even bother trying to hide my irritation. I literally rubbed my temples and slurped my coffee loudly. "You didn't answer my question, and I'm not going to. I was off the clock at the time you called." "You're salaried, right? That means it doesn't matter if you work 100 hours or 1 hour. You get paid the same. So I expect you to be available when I need you." "What do you need?" "I need you to reset all the company usernames and passwords. We're letting someone go today, and it's company policy to change all that." At the same time, Louise texts me that she's being let go. So I read the company handbook and make a copy of the page that says the IT person must update the usernames and passwords and give the information to the COO. I changed all the usernames and passwords to everything, from social media accounts to bank accounts to QuickBooks and emails. I send the usernames and passwords in an encrypted email to Louise, and then send the CEO my 2-week notice. 2 weeks go by. It's the last hour of my last day. So what do? Change all those usernames and passwords again and send them to Louise, who was also celebrating her last day. I log out of my email, put my company phone and laptop in the mail, and spend the evening cackling at my malicious compliance. The very next day, on Saturday, the CEO calls me repeatedly. Finally, she leaves me a long and howling voicemail to say what I did was unprofessional, and she'd make sure my reputation suffered, and that I would never work in the industry again. I wait until Monday to call back. Hey, CEO, I saw you called. I need the usernames and passwords to everything. I'm sorry, but I don't work there anymore. You'll have to contact your IT person to help with that. You are the IT person. No, I was the IT person. Now I'm a private consultant, and I'd be happy to provide my services at a rate of $100 an hour. You changed all the usernames and passwords and didn't provide them to me. Correct. Per company policy, when an employee leaves the organization, the IT person is supposed to update everything and send the new info to the COO. I was leaving, so I updated everything. I provided all the usernames and passwords to Louise. You knew she was quitting too. Why would you give them to her? Because the company policy says to transfer the username and passwords to the COO, not the CEO. Louise was the COO when I left. Caught in her bureaucracy, she then had to spend weeks trying to gain access to all the company accounts. On Louise's and my last day, Tina and another employee quit. Another person announced her retirement. Once the 5 of us were gone, we were followed by several other employees. In total, 11 people on the 14-person staff quit within a few weeks. The best part? I got a new job making the same amount I did at that crappy nonprofit, but part-time in a government position with full-time benefits. So much for my reputation suffering. I stayed in touch with one of the employees who stayed behind. She's only 3 years away from retirement and is basically Stan from The Office. She said they've hired at least a dozen people. All of them quit as soon as they could find another job. I mean, technically speaking, our original poster did everything they were supposed to do. It's not their fault that it happened to screw over the CEO, who also happened to be a jerk. These things just line up sometimes. But I hope that her losing, 80% of her staff? Kind of is a wake-up call for her. Maybe she needs to start treating people better, else you're not going to be able to keep anyone around. And at the end of the day, if you want your business to be successful, you need employees. Otherwise, they'll leave you all alone, and then you'll see what it's really like to have to do everything yourself. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below. And don't forget to subscribe. My entitled aunt hates that I'm better at stuff than my cousin, and calls me some colorful names to boot. I've always been above average in a lot of things, which bothers my aunt to no end, which then leads to her pushing my cousin too far. And at this point, my cousin and I are sick of my aunt ruining her mental health over trying to make her better than me in things that she doesn't even care about. Well, grade 8 is the year that we have the option to apply for an IB school, which is basically the gifted program continued into high school. We have an English and French, but French is always seen as the more prestigious program. My parents made sure my first language was French, so I'd get a head start and hopefully when I'm older, better jobs. My cousin, on the other hand, didn't start immersion until 3rd grade, and her French isn't the strongest. So we both applied to the French IB program, because my parents asked me to, so I had the option. My cousin, because entitled aunt told her to. Well, we get the applications back. I got in, but my cousin got 4th quartered waitlisted, which basically means almost 100 people have to drop out. My aunt was not happy about this. So what does my entitled aunt do? Well, she calls me from my cousin's phone to berate me, of course. During that phone call, in between her demand that I don't go to that school, there were some fun words, a lot of which were aimed at my gender preference, not the least of which was abomination. She also spent a solid 10 minutes going on about how my cousin deserves it more. I honestly just stayed on the call to see what insults she could come up with until she was repeating herself. I actually did attend that school for grade 9 out of spite, but I just wanted to go back to school with my friends and apply for HPA, so that's what I did this year. Okay, I had to censor this one a little bit when it came to the names that our original poster was being called, but trust me, this lady is all kinds of jerk. Any one of these words, if I were to read them aloud, would immediately put you against this woman. I honestly just really feel bad for our original poster's cousin, who has to put up with this person as their mother. This is just the small glimpse that our original poster gets. I can't imagine what their cousin's day-to-day looks like. This lady sounds like one of the most toxic people you could possibly interact with. At least their cousin's smart enough to know that their mom is not a good person, and that's not the way you should view the world. I'm sure once they're done with school, they're gonna be out of that house as quickly as possible. I unknowingly registered for a fast-track doctorate program and destroyed my life in the process. This might be a happy screw-up, but it's definitely a screw-up. I've cried tears of anger and relief today. I started my doctorate in January, and have been plugging away at it ever since. At first, it felt like the workload was manageable, but very soon into the program, everything accelerated, and the homework began piling on. I was assigned hundreds of pages of reading each week, along with 25 to 50-page papers. I figured this was just grad school, and it was normal to have to do this. The instructors said that we should expect 15 to 20 hours of work per week for each class, which sounded a bit much, but I didn't think too much of it. Things really started to take a toll on my life by my second quarter. I was falling behind in work and unable to contribute to any of the household responsibilities. I became depressed shortly afterward and was having some negative thoughts. I was barely able to make it through each day. Some days I could barely bring myself to brush my teeth or shower. My fiancé was amazing during all of this and took over managing the home front while I worked and focused on my schooling. I had to start waking up at 1 in the morning to get my schoolwork done before teaching, and he would stay up every night to make sure I woke up on time, then get a few hours of sleep himself before going to work at 5. We got to see each other for about an hour each day, if I didn't fall asleep before dinner. Today, I received a notification that I'll be completing my coursework next quarter, and will begin my research phase in the spring. I didn't think I was graduating for at least 3 more years, but I have less than a year and a half left. On one hand, I'm glad I'm almost done, but on the other, I put myself through misery by clicking on the wrong registration button. My fiancé is thrilled that this is all almost over, and he thinks he should get an honorary doctorate for his help. I definitely agree. Hey, shout out to the fiancé for really coming through on this one. Looks like you picked a good one. In all seriousness though, that sounds like a heck of a lot to be taking on. I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's a relief to get through it all quickly, but you still have a year and a half left to go. That's not a small amount of time. And you've talked about the effects it's having on your mental health. Is it really worth it to try and force yourself through another year and a half? Isn't there any way you can rework this? At the end of the day, you have to take care of yourself. Don't push yourself harder than you need to. You have a great fiancé. Try and enjoy that a little bit more, and not be working all the time. Entitled customer thinks she knows what she's ordering, but of course won't allow me to tell her otherwise. Years ago, I worked at a local coffee shop. We served the standard coffee shop menu of coffee drinks and pastries we made in-house. One of our coffee drinks on the menu was a macchiato. We served a traditional macchiato, which is a double shot of espresso with a touch of steamed milk and milk foam. But since a certain chain has named a very different drink the same thing, I would always try to clarify what the customer was ordering when they asked for one. One day, a woman came up to the counter on her cell phone. She briefly pulled the phone away from her head long enough to mouth caramel macchiato at me. I start my spiel about how we serve a traditional macchiato, which is quite small. Did she want that or one like the other place makes? She cut me off 3 words in and dramatically said, "I know what it is, just make it." So I rang her up and made it. I made her a tiny drink with espresso, caramel syrup, and milk foam. When I gave it to her, she finally got off her phone call and told me I clearly made it wrong. I explained I made what she ordered, as she told me she knew what she was ordering. She now said she wanted one like she would get at the national chain, which I happily made and charged her for. She did not get a refund on the first drink. Here we go again. Everyone thinks they know better and is in too much of a rush to actually stop and listen to what someone has to say. God forbid you take 2 seconds to get off your phone and listen to what the person's telling you. They're trying to help you out here and save you a few bucks. But hey, if you're insisting you know, I'm gonna follow through. Don't complain to me when I tried to warn you. The deli girl at the supermarket is my new hero for how she dealt with this Karen. I just witnessed the most beautiful piece of malicious compliance at my local supermarket. It has a deli counter where you take a paper ticket and wait your turn. There's a digital display that shows the next number, but when it's quiet, the staff often just serve the next person without advancing the number of the display, and it gets out of whack. Today was one such day. I pulled ticket number 87, and the display said 29. There were 2 people ahead of me at the counter. Some guy who was apparently 85 and what turned out to be a Karen at 86. While deli girl is helping man 85, Karen launches into a tirade about the display being on 29, yelling at the young girl behind the counter that she's lazy and causing confusion. I just rolled my eyes and threw a look of understanding sympathy to the girl behind the counter as she finished up with guy number 85. What happened next was priceless. Karen sees number 85 leave and launches into her order. Deli girl cuts her off with a sweet smile and says, "One moment please, ma'am," picks up the clicker for the display and clicks it over and over and over again until it reaches 86. It took quite a while. Needless to say, Karen was ticked. She glared at the girl behind the counter the whole time, while I stood there with a huge grin on my face. And the best part? She couldn't even criticize, because she was the one going off about it being wrong. After finishing Karen's order, deli girl tried to apologize to me for the delay. I told her she'd absolutely made my day. It's not often you see service staff being able to deliver a customer service slapdown, but when you do, it's glorious to watch. That is always a nice moment, isn't it? I mean, original poster said it. Karen can't argue. This is what she wanted after all. She's just gonna have to sit there and wait while she gets what she asked for. I hope since the nice deli girl went out of her way to give this customer what she wanted, she took the time to leave a nice review afterwards. We all know how Karens love leaving reviews. I told my boyfriend if he wants me to wear nicer clothes, he should buy them. Bear with me, and I know I sound like the jerk from the title, but it's a long story. I'm a 32-year-old female. My boyfriend is also 32, and we've been together for around 14 years. We grew up together and come from the same working-class background. We both went to university and did well. I'm an architect, and he's got a very good job at a bank. We live in London. We both make good money now, but he makes ridiculously good money. This has never been an issue in our relationship. Neither of us are massively financially driven, although it's obviously nice to be able to afford things now. Anyway, as part of my boyfriend's role, he's invited to a lot of events and dinners where he's allowed to bring his partner. I obviously dress up for the occasion. However, a lot of partners of his colleagues and his female colleagues really dress up. I might show up wearing a dress from Reese, which to me is still extremely fancy, but they'll be there in Balenciaga or other very expensive clothes. Recently, my boyfriend asked if I'd consider buying something like that for an event we were going to. It was an awards ceremony. It was just one night and it was very fancy. So I agreed and spent an eye-watering amount of money on a dress. Since then, he's asking if I'd consider doing this for every event I go to. I said it's a waste of money, and I'm not going to spend thousands on clothes and shoes, but that every once in a while I'm happy to splash out. I also said if he's happy to buy it, then I'll wear it, but otherwise I'd rather spend my money on other things. He doesn't like that idea, because we've never had that kind of relationship, and he said it would feel like our dynamic was changing if he started buying me stuff like that, like we're not equal partners, which I totally understand, because I would feel the same. I personally feel like he wants me to wear this sort of stuff because we don't come from this lifestyle, and he feels like he has something to prove, although he won't admit it. In my industry, no one cares what you wear, at least not to that extreme. I'm torn as to whether I'm the jerk for refusing or not. The money wouldn't exactly break the bank, but I just don't want to waste cash unnecessarily. Societal expectations suck sometimes, don't they? I mean, at the end of the day, you can wear whatever you want. If you choose to show up in a garbage bag, that's your obligation. But I get it. Your husband's trying to make an impression on these people, and you guys want to look good. There are places where you can rent nice, expensive dresses from designer brands and stuff like that, and just have it for the one night. As long as you don't spill any wine on it or anything, I think that should solve your problem. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.